Welcome everybody to the Season 7 Week 2 Canadian Simulation Football pregame show. I'm your Commissioner JD, and let's get right into these matchups for Week 2. These are the who you got right here, and on the other side I got my schedule. We got the Werewolves and Rhinos kicking us off, and it looks like the who you got. Don't be afraid to go vote for the who you got, guys. We had a lot more votes last week. Let's keep this thing going. But it seems like the who you got is in the Rhinos' favor. We'll take a look at the who you gots when we get back at the end of it. But let's get right into this. Excuse me. Let's get right into this, and we'll go to the Werewolves. And the Werewolves are 1-0 versus the 1-0 Rhinos. The Werewolves are 0-5 versus the Rhinos in the regular season, and in season 6 lost 41-3, only gaining 50 yards on the ground in a season where they led the league in rushing yards. They got 1,300 on the season, but only 50 against the Rhinos last year by running back Chris Jones. Werewolves have the number 1 ranked defense, though, here in Week 2. And they're at home, and they have a good chance to finally beat these Rhinos and get to a 2-0 record. The Rhinos now on the road after a big win against the Cobras. The Rhinos are 5-0 versus the Werewolves in the regular season and go on the road with their third-ranked defense and the first-ranked turnover differential at +3 in Week 2. Rhinos had 194 yards on the ground the last time these two teams met, but they will have to do it again against these Werewolves' first-ranked rushing defense that only allowed 56 rushing yards last week versus the Scorpions. Lots of good things about both these teams. The Rhinos have an extremely high-powered offense that is just starting to get going, and the Werewolves have an extremely impressive defense, number 1 ranked in the league right now. This is going to be a slugfest for a 2-0 spot. And now let's move on to the next game, the Piranhas versus the Wildcats. The Piranhas, the defending champion Piranhas, should I say, are 5-1 versus the Wildcats and continue to dominate the CSFL, coming off an impressive win versus the new team Wolverines on the road 28-14 to introduce them to the league. Piranhas have the 4th-ranked passing offense led by veteran quarterback, Season 6 championship game winner and MVP, Alonzo Graham, quarterback number 7 for the Piranhas here in Week 2. An extremely clutch player for the Piranhas, who are 1-0. The Wildcats are 1-5 versus the Piranhas, only beating them once, and that was in Season 6. After 5 straight losses, they finally beat the Piranhas. The Wildcats beat the Piranhas last season. But the last time these two teams met, it was in the playoffs, actually. Round 1 in the first round, where the Piranhas knocked off the first seed Wildcats. They lost at home 34-28. The Wildcats look to get their second ever win against the Piranhas and get the revenge here in Season 7 with their number 1 ranked offense and second in the league for points per game at 45. The Wildcats looked extremely impressive last week, and so did the Piranhas. This is a battle of the Titans here, and whoever wins this game is going to be going into Week 3 with a lot of momentum. Let's move to the next game, the Bears versus the Vipers. The Bears are 0-1 and the Vipers are 1-0. Bears are coming off a close game, losing in the final 10 seconds versus the Blue Jays. They look to bounce back here in Week 2 versus the dominating Vipers team. Bears are 3-2 versus the Vipers, but lost their last 2 meetings. only scoring a combined 13 points in the last two meetings. Bears have the second ranked rushing defense and the fourth ranked rushing offense, and look to ground and pound the Vipers at home for their season 7 opener in front of their home crowd. The Vipers are 2-3 versus the Bears, but have held them to 13 points combined in their last two meetings. Vipers are coming off a huge win versus the Wolverines, scoring 51 points and rushing for over 300 yards with their new up-and-coming running back Gary Mason, who looked like he couldn't be stopped. Will have to try to do the same, though, versus this Bears second-ranked rushing defense, which is a lot different than the new team Werewolves. The Vipers have the first-ranked rushing offense, and the Bears have the second-ranked rushing defense. Makes for a classic game in the making. Who will budge? Will the Bears shut down the Vipers' running game, or will the Vipers basically run this ball and can't be stopped? Well, that's going to be a great, great game here on Friday night at 9 p.m. Let's get into the Saturday games, starting off with the Gators versus the Gorillas. The Gators are 0-1, and the Gorillas are 0-1. The Gorillas lost their week lost last week in a thrilling overtime match. The Gorillas really proved a lot last week, showing they can compete with the highly favored Demons here in Season 7. Gators have the second-ranked offense and have the second-best rushing offense in Week 2, are now facing the new Team Gorillas, who have the ninth-ranked defense. Gators are at home, and rookie strong safety number 44, Jason Dodd, looked to make up for last week. He led the team in tackles, but there was a play last week where he had pass interference call in the end zone with no time left on the clock, allowing the Demons to kick a field goal from the 1 and then eventually go on to win in overtime. The Gators, man, they were so close to winning last week and now are at home and trying to get back to 1-1, and let's see if the free safety or strong safety Jason Dodd, their number 1 draft pick, first round draft pick, can really make an impact for this team early. Gorillas only scored 14 points in their first ever home game against the defending champion Piranhas, but had a lot of great moments and kept it competitive the whole game. Number 10, quarterback Ismail Pitts looked great, throwing over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and broke multiple tackles and was able to deliver the ball under constant Piranha pressure. Gorillas have the 5th-ranked passing offense and are going against the Gators' 5th-ranked passing defense. Have yet another challenge for the Gorillas to see how they match up against some of the best in the league. The Gorillas have a big task ahead of them, but they looked really good last week, especially offensively. The Gators looked amazing. Expect a high-flying game here between these two teams to kick off Saturday. Let's go into the next game. The Wolverines versus the Demons. The Wolverines lost to the Vipers last week and allowed over 50 points on the road and have a lot to reflect on defensively, but they looked amazing offensively, led by quarterback number 16, William Taylor, who threw for over 330 yards with a 154.4 quarterback rating and threw 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions against one of the best defenses the CSFL has to offer in the Vipers. But the real highlight play was when William Taylor ran for a 47-yard touchdown run, showing how determined he is to win despite the odds. Shows a lot of promise for this new franchise and this young and coming quarterback. Wolverines looked extremely impressive and extremely promising, and I expect them to do the same here in their first ever franchise home game. The Demons won last week in an overtime thriller, but could have easily lost that game if it wasn't for the rookie strong safety, number 44, Jason Dodd from the Gators, who had a pass interference call in the end zone with no time left on the clock to bring them into field goal range, where they ultimately went to tie it up and go into forcing overtime, and the Demons walked away with the win with a huge run by the young running back Derek Crowder. Demons look great though. As of now, they are the third ranked for points per game at 44, and are third for rushing offense. Look to have a big day against a new team that allowed over 50 points last week. These Demons are a high-powered offense and now look to have a really strong running game. They're third in the league for points per game, and they're going against a team that let up 50 points. You can only imagine that these Demons are going to put up a lot of points. Can the Wolverines keep up? They're at home. This is going to be a real tester for the Wolverines to really see where they stand with some of the league's best in the Demons. Let's move on to the next game, Cobras versus the Blue Jays. The Cobras have the second ranked defense and are first for passing defense, but still lost against their rival Rhinos. 28-14. Cobras are 2-4 versus the Blue Jays in the regular season and are in jeopardy of going 0-2 against a high-powered Blue Jays who have the number one ranked passing offense, and that scored 34 points last week, and the Cobras only scored 14, is not a good sign for these Cobras. The Cobras have a big question mark, though, that needs to be addressed, and that is who will be the starting quarterback for these Cobras. Number 7 quarterback Benjamin Harris did not play well versus the Rhinos, going 1-6 on third downs and having a quarterback rating of 57.3, and threw 2 interceptions and ultimately lost the ball game. The Cobras drafted another quarterback, though, into the mix and have 2 veterans quarterbacks already on the bench, including Ralph Dorsey and Derek Albright, and they also brought in Eric Watson from the Demons and then traded him away. Will the Cobras give 24-year-old, 2-year pro Benjamin Harris another go, or will they pull out one of the veterans? This Cobras team looks great defensively. They're the second best ranked defense in week 2, but their offense is ranked 12th. They really need to figure out their offensive woes if they want to turn this around, and they're at home this week. No better time than now. The Blue Jays looked impressive, beating the Great Bears defense last week within the last 10 seconds on the clock, and now have the first-ranked passing offense led by quarterback Eric Reeves, who put up 400 yards passing and 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, and had a 140.4 quarterback rating. Week 2, the Blue Jays take it on the road against a team that only allowed 115 passing yards last week. Will the Blue Jays be able to throw it around as well as they did last week on the road versus the number 1 ranked passing defense? Or will we see more of the Blue Jays running game this week versus the Cobras' 10th ranked rushing defense? The Blue Jays look extremely good. The young rookie defensive end that they drafted in the first round, Rob Henderson, has been playing phenomenal for them. They beat the Blue Jays, or the Blue Jays beat the Bears, should I say, and now they're off to a 1-0 start on the road versus these Cobras who are struggling offensively. Okay, and then the last matchup of the weekend is the Dragons versus the Scorpions. The Dragons lost last week versus the Wildcats, allowing the second most passing yards, and finished week 1 with the 13th ranked passing defense. Look to bounce back against the team that also lost last week. Dragons led by 22-year-old 6'6" quarterback number 2, Marcus McNeil, who threw 2 interceptions and had a 77.2 quarterback rating, struggled to get the ball to his targets. Dragons are going to have another hard time this week trying to throw the ball against the Scorpions, who brought tremendous pressure against the quarterback last week. Dragons are at home, though, and need to avoid going 0-2, and all of the focus is really on this young 2-year pro quarterback, Marcus McNeil. Their defense was playing well last week, but their offense really did struggle at times. Really curious what's going to go on with these Dragons, if they're going to make any changes, or if Marcus McNeil is really going to turn the corner for this team. Scorpions drafted a rookie. Speaking of quarterbacks, the Scorpions, they drafted a rookie quarterback named Will Brooks in the first round and did not play him in week 1. The veteran and 2-time CSFL champion winning quarterback number 14, Jeannie Ingram, played great with a 140.6 quarterback rating, throwing 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Look to be getting back into the groove of things here in Season 7. Scorpions are going against a struggling Dragons team that has a young quarterback, but are now on the road and they have struggles of their own. 14th ranked offense and a 9th ranked passing defense. The Scorpions really look to improve their rankings here in week 2. Will they go with the young quarterback, Will Brooks? Will we see Will Brooks in Season 7? They also have another quarterback there, Minucci, as their backup, who progressed in the offseason, who they got last year. They got 2 young guys there, and they got 1 veteran. Jeannie Ingram won 2 championship games already. You can't imagine them swaying off from him, but when they do, they got 2 guys ready and eager to start. Thank you so much, guys. Good luck in week 2, and I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Take care.